Hey everyone, it's your buddy back again with another exciting fanfic, which is what if Kami intervened in Naruto's life. Naruto X Harem, Part 2. If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. Adventures of a New Village. 2 days after the arrival to Konoha, Naruto and Pakura walked up the stairs past the Hokage's assistant to get their first official missions for Konoha. They spent most of yesterday lazing around and getting acquainted, or reacquainted for Naruto. As they made their way up to the Hokage's office, Naruto thought back to the interesting thing he found out last night. He found the way to get Naomi out of the seal. Naruto did in fact try to make the Chishio Bunshin when he woke up earlier this morning. He made sure to line his room with the Yukai suppression seals so the Anbu didn't show up. Turns out you need more than 3 tails to even make a Chishio Bunshin. He would just have to find a time where he could swing by Uzu for a couple of days. It's not like it had to be done immediately, says the one not cooped up in this seal. Naruto chuckled as he walked up the stairs to the Hokage's office. Come on, babe. You know we couldn't do anything until I receive the last gift that Ka-chan gives me. I don't know what it is, much less when I'm getting it. Naruto cut the link as he and Pakura walked into the Sandame's office. They saw that Sarutobi was sitting at his desk, starting his morning paperwork as they walked in. Ah, Naruto-kun and Pakura-chan. Nice to see you two today. Did you enjoy getting used to the village yesterday? He got nods in response. Did you bring back the clan adoption papers that I gave you 2 days ago? Naruto reached for the seal on his wrist and channeled chakra. With a poof, a small stack of filled-out papers were resting in his hand. He walked up to the desk and set them on the desk. There you go, Gigi. Hiruzen picked them up and scanned through the 5 or so pages. He got his official seal and stamped the first page on the top right corner. It's official. You are from this point on, Uzumaki Pakura. I also give you clearance to move into the Namikaze compound. Naruto adopted a large grin. Awesome. Finally, my own place that the water will actually work. By the way, just call it the Uzumaki compound from now on. Nothing against my old man, but since I'm keeping my mom's name and becoming the clan head, it just seems right to call it Uzumaki. He nodded and set the papers in the completed stack and turned back to the 2 waiting shinobi. Very well. Now for your first missions as Konoha shinobi. I'm going to place you together in a team for most of the missions that you two take while Pakura-chan here is still under her probationary period. Today you will have a basic mission around the Tanzaku-gai area, he said as he handed Pakura a small dossier. This is a B-rank mission that includes taking out a bandit camp that is terrorizing one of the smaller villages that is about 10 miles from Tanzaku-gai. If the information we have is correct, then you will be eliminating mostly bandits. There are a few high genin, low chunin missing nin from a couple villages including our own. They heard a knock at the door and the Hokage called for them to come in, knowing who it most likely was. In walked Kakashi with his Ika Ika book in hand. He walked up by the other 2 in the room and looked up lazily. Sorry I'm so late, Hokage-sama. A black cat crossed a lady who was carrying her groceries, so I had to take the long way around and help her with all of her things. The Hokage smirked. Well, it's a good thing that I told you to be here 4 hours ago, because we actually just started the briefing. Kakashi's lone eye widened at how he had been played. Kuso. You broke my streak. The Sandame just chuckled. Well, now that you're here, you can read the dossier that Pakura has. 'Cause I'm not going over that shit again. Kakashi nodded and read over the file he was handed. Now, started the Hokage once more, I know that I said Kakashi would oversee most of the missions that you two would be assigned, but this has changed. Kakashi, here, will be training a genin team, so there isn't going to be many missions outside of the village for him. You two will be supervised by several other junin. He lit his pipe and took a good drag. Now once Kakashi has finished, you should all head out. Good luck and see you when you return. 5 months later, outside Atofika-gai, Naruto was walking back to his team's campsite with 2 Kage Bunshin, all carrying a heap of firewood in their arms. They were on their way back to the village after a somewhat simple B-rank escort mission. The team consisted of himself, Pakura, a Chunin named Okai and a Junin named Shirakumo Hayama. The mission was actually one led by Pakura, being supervised by Hayama. It had been a fairly easy mission, only a few weaker shinobi that they had to fight off. Everyone was just tired and wanted to be home after a week of protecting their client. Naruto was stopped dead in his tracks when he smelled blood. Lots of it. He made a third cage bunshin to get to camp as fast as it could to alert the others as he went off to investigate. He followed the scent for about 200 yards, where he saw a cabin. The cabin was just a small cottage that was one large room, but that's not what was peculiar about the cabin. The cabin had about 6 bodies and a large dog lying dead around the door, and the outside walls were covered with blood. He quietly stalked around to the side and looked in through a window that was there. What he saw made him unconsciously channel some of Nomi's chakra. There was a woman inside on the edge of unconsciousness that had her hands and feet restrained, with her mouth gagged. She was beaten and bloodied with what clothes she had left on in rags. The bindings on her hands were tied up on an elevated notch on the wall across from the window he was looking in from. He tried his hardest to remain calm and wait for backup to come, in case something else was going on. He then saw a man walk from the side of the cabin. The window was on toward the girl with a rather large knife in his right hand. The guy was a taller man with a muscular build with shoulder-length brown hair. He wore black pants and shirt with a slashed Iwagakure Hitai tied around his left arm. He leered at the girl with a twisted smile as he made it over to her. He ran the flat edge of the knife along her jawline. Such a pretty girl. It's a shame you weren't very strong. I always love it when they fight back more, he said, giving an insane cackle and a small grope to her chest at the end of his statement. The man reached for her tattered flak jacket and cut it off with the large knife. Oh, wearing chest bindings. Now that certainly won't do, he said as he started to cut them with his knife. She screamed into her gag as she tried twisting away from him. That was all Naruto could stand before he shattered the window and leapt in as the man made the cut to expose the woman's large bust. The Iwa missing nin jumped to the side so he could face the intruder, giving the kunoichi a slight cut under her armpit. The nin immediately put the blade of the knife to her neck as he saw Naruto form a dog seal. I don't know who you are, but if you move even one muscle I will not hesitate to kill this bitch, gurgle. That was all the man got out before Naruto shot out vacuum ball to the man's throat, killing him by drowning in his own blood. Fuden. Shinkugyoku, he muttered as he made his way over to the woman to untie her. He made it over to her and she was about to scream again, but calmed down once she noticed the Konoha Hitai resting on his forehead. First he undid the gag on her mouth, getting a painful groan immediately after the cloth left her mouth. He then cut the bindings on her feet and then went to her hands. He unsealed a brown clock from a seal on his wrist as he put it around her. He picked her up bridal style and gently set her down on the small bed that was in the one of the corners of the room. He then turned around and made 5 cage bunshin that he gave instructions to immediately find the others in his group. When he looked back over to the kunoichi, she was passed out on the bed. It was at this time he actually observed her features. She was about average height for a woman. She had blood-soaked brown hair in a shoulder blade-length ponytail, which was messed up due to her struggling earlier, and 2 thin bangs that framed her face. She had a normal face shape and the only thing that was off were the fang-like tattoos on her cheeks. Quote exclamation mark quote. Wait a minute. That's an Inuzuka trait. The girl on the bed is most likely from Konoha, he thought. You did see a large dog dead at the front of the house, he heard his lover say. You're right, I did. Send a cage bunshin outside to look over the corpses you saw outside when you first came up to the cabin. Good idea. Thanks Naomi-chan. He did as his girlfriend said and waited for the bunshin to dispel and for the backup to get to his position. Naruto's face gained a solemn expression when the cage bunshin popped. It turned out that out of the 8 figures outside, 4 of them and the dog were from Konoha. He felt another cage bunshin that was in the area dispel since it had found its team and it would only be a few moments before they came into the cabin. He heard the door open and looked back to see his team walk through the front entrance. Pakura and Shirakumo went in to check on the girl while Naruto and Okai went to clean up the outside and identify the bodies. After looking through the shinobi's flak jackets where their ID was, they were able to identify all the Leaf and missing Nin, including the girl who was alive. Turns out, she was the oldest daughter of the Inuzuka clan head, Inuzuka Hana. Pakura walks out of the cabin with a scroll containing the head of the Iwa Nin and tosses it to her little brother. There's the missing Nin's head for the bounty. You killed him, so you get it. He was only AC rank anyway. Naruto nodded and sealed the scroll in the seal on his wrist. He turned back to Pakura. How about the Inuzuka chick? She gonna be alright? Pakura nodded lightly. If we can get her back to the village in a couple hours, then she'll be alright after a few weeks off. Naruto snapped his head over to her. Weeks. Naruto-kun, you don't realize that you saved her from being raped. She knew what was going to happen. I had to send Hayama-san out as it was because she freaked out when she saw him. I think she will be wary of men for a couple weeks until she's able to have some therapy sessions. Naruto looked around and thought. Well, this is going to be a bitch to get home. 3 out of the 4 on our team are guys. Pakura thought about it for a second. I can ask either OK-san or Hayama-san if either of them know a sleep genjutsu. Turns out OK knew one called Nihon Shuja no Jutsu, Temple of Nirvana technique. He showed Pakura the hand seals and thoroughly explained how to mold her chakra properly for the technique as well as how much to use. 5 minutes later, Pakura came out of the cabin carrying a knocked out Inuzuka heiress bridal style. Naruto bit his thumb and slammed it on the ground. Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning technique. A large red toad appeared under Naruto. Oi, I don't see a battle here, Yaki. What have I told you about that? Naruto huffed in frustration. Why did Bunta always have to be so damn difficult about everything not related to drinking and or beating up on Ero-sennin? Please Bunta, we got a clan heiress who was almost raped and needs to be in a hospital ASAP. I won't call you again without having another sake party if you help us out this one time. Well, if I knew the circumstances I would have done it anyway, but I accept. What? You said you would do it anyway. You offered a sake party and I ain't gonna turn down an offer like that. Now just hop on and I'll get you to Konoha in no time. Hour later, Konoha. The ground quaked as the giant form of the chief toad landed in a training ground relatively close to the Konoha hospital. As everybody got off, he called out to his summoner. Oi, Naruto. Don't forget our sake party before you summon me again. He yelled out with a hearty laugh as he disappeared in a cloud of smoke the size of a large building. Naruto slumped his shoulder, crying anime tears at the declaration. OK slapped him on the back and laughed at the dramatics. Come on, man. It's just a sake party. It can't be that bad. Can't hold your liquor or something. Naruto huffed and stood up as they waited for Hayama and Pakura to come out of the hospital so they could go and make their report. Do you know how much sake it takes to get a giant toad drunk? Oki shook his head. No. A month's worth of missions is how much. I'm gonna be broke for weeks after this, he trailed off sobbing quietly. A few weeks later, the Sandaime Hokage was having a pretty good day so far. He had finished his paperwork for the afternoon rather quickly due to the use of cage buncheons, he had eaten a great plate of sushi for lunch, and now he had time to read a few extra chapters of his precious Icha. He whipped out his book from the locked compartment of his desk and quickly flipped to the page where he left off. That was when Naruto burst through the window of the Hokage's office, shattering the closed window and showering the Hokage along with his whole office with minuscule shards of glass. Naruto shook all of the bits of glass he could out of his hair and off of his skin and turned to the aged Hokage. Oi, Gigi, what the fuck? Why'd you close your window when you summoned me? Hiruzen gave the resident Jinchuriki a deadpan look before he sighed and closed his book again. Naruto-kun, if I've told you once then I've told Jiraiya a million times. Use the goddamn door. Naruto thought about it for a second. Aren't shinobi supposed to be all stealthy and shit? Why would I use the door when there is a perfectly good window? Sarutobi facepalmed and picked up a small file from the side of his desk. Just take the damn mission and leave. It's a solo mission in Nami no Kuni to back up Kakashi and his genin team as they have a mission that the difficulty was light about. You need to leave for as soon as possible. Naruto perked up at the mention of that particular country. Sounds good, Gigi, but I'm gonna need some time to myself right after this mission. Any particular reason for this? Questioned Hiruzen. Naruto nodded. Yeah, Nami no Kuni is really close to the ruins of Uzushiogakure and you can guess what I want to do from there. Hiruzen nodded. Granted. After Team Kakashi is headed back to the village, you are allowed 4 days of leave to visit the ruins. Is that satisfactory? Naruto nodded. That gave him plenty of time to scour the ruins with Kage Bunshin. Alright then, you need to get off to Nami no Kuni to these coordinates immediately. Naruto nodded and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. He reappeared in the living room of the Uzumaki compound. He went up to his room to grab his mission scroll that contained all the things he needed for a month-long mission, sealing it into the seal on the underside of his right forearm. He also grabbed all the scrolls and kunai he was using to dissect the Hiraishin formula with, and sealed the materials into a seal on his opposite forearm. He had made decent process trying to figure out the jutsu shiki for the formula, he just had to work out a proper formula that was attuned to his chakra. His father was some kind of genius. Checking over his current attire for all the things he might want to look badass in for now and approved. Now he just had to tell Pakura that he was going to be gone for a little bit. He closed his eyes and stretched out his senses, finding that she was in the compound's training ground. He shunshined over to her position and found her meditating while sitting up against a tree. He smirked when he saw she hadn't noticed him yet. He walked over to her, got right in her ear and took a deep breath in, only to have that breath immediately exit his lungs due to a solid punch to the gut from a green-haired woman. Naruto coughed for a few seconds on the ground before he was able to mutter out a sentence. Moso mean Ne-chan, and here I was coming to see you to tell you that I'm going on a mission. Pakura gave him a too sweet smile. How precious of you, Ototo. And here I thought you were just about to scream in my ear. She reached her hand out and helped him up. So how long will this mission be? Naruto dusted off his eyes and shrugged. I have no clue on how long the mission will last. The file I read said that the team was scheduled for 3 weeks to protect the bridge builder while he finished the bridge. If all it takes is to finish the bridge, then I can help out with Kage Bunshins and finish it in a week. But after the mission, I am going to the ruins of Uzushiogakure to look around. Pakura nodded. That last part sounds like it would be fun. I wish I could do it, but the Uzumaki were known for seals and would have placed them in the important spots so people like me couldn't get to them. Don't worry, Ne-chan, I'll bring you back something good. She nodded with a slight smirk. You better, you missed my birthday a few weeks back. Naruto deadpanned. We have been over this a million times. Gigi sent me on a mission. Blame him, Ne-chan. He huffed and straightened up. I better get going. I am supposed to leave ASAP to help out Kaka-sensei with protection from a couple low-level missing nin. He gave her a quick hug and a peck on the cheek before he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. To Zuna's house, the next night, Naruto strolled up to a large house that was sitting on the coordinate points he was given by the Hokage. It was a really big house for what he had seen in the town before he had gone through. The town was filled with people on the streets and the people that looked like they had somewhere to go, didn't look much better. He could tell that they were living in extreme poverty. Now he knew why Kakashi continued the mission. These people needed help. Badly. Shaking the thoughts out of his head, he knocked on the door and waited for someone to answer. When the door partially opened, he was greeted by the face of a beautiful black-haired woman who looked to be about 25 or so. Hello, can I help you? She asked. Yeah, is this where a silver-haired man named Kakashi and a bridge builder named Tazuna are staying? Slight signs of panic showed on her face before she quickly schooled her features. I'm sorry, who? Naruto lightly smiled at catching her short expressions a second ago. Don't worry, ma'am, he said as he pulled down his hitai to show the leaf insignia. I'm a leaf shinobi and the backup that Kakashi-sensei called for. Relief was evident on her face. Oh, thanked Kami. I thought Gato sent another thug for Two-san. She opened the door all the way and made a gesture for him to come inside. Please, come in. We had a bit of stew left over from dinner if you are hungry. I really appreciate it, but I have eaten dinner already. If you could just show me to Kakashi, I can be briefed on the situation and get out of your hair, he replied as he walked into the house. Tsunami nodded as they went toward a small set of stairs leading to the rooms. Are you not going to stay here with the rest of Kakashi's team? Well, there is already 4 of them in your family. I wouldn't want to impose. Oh, no, you must stay here. There aren't many open places to stay in town and we have plenty of room. I am Uzumaki Naruto and if you have the room, then I guess I can stay here. She nodded with a smile. Good. I am Tsunami, Tazuna's daughter. They arrived at the door room she said Kakashi and his 3 genin were in at the moment and left him to whatever he would be doing. Naruto knocked on the door and this time, it was answered by a pink-haired girl that looked to be about his age. Who are you? Naruto showed her his Hitai-8. If you are a part of the team to protect Tazuna, then I am your backup. Is Kakashi-sensei in there? She looked wary of him but nodded. She let him in and he walked over to his old sensei, who was passed out on a futon in a corner of the room. He checked over his sensei's condition and sighed. He looked around the room and found 2 more boys, both with black hair and leaf Hitai-8, in the room. The extremely pale one was writing or drawing something on a small notepad, while the one with the oddly duckish hairstyle was simply sitting there munching on a tomato. He turned back to the girl of the group. Did he really struggle this badly with 2 C-rank missing nin to the point he's passed out with chakra exhaustion? The girl got really angry at his question. What the hell do you know? Sasuke-kun was the one to save us from the demon brothers. Kakashi-sensei got tired when we faced Momochi Zabuza. Naruto's eyes widened. Momochi Zabuza. She nodded. Like the wrapped-up guy with a big as sword on his back. Another nod. Well shit. He looked over at the passed-out Junin then turned back to the girl. How long has he been out? He said he was going to rest until he recovered all his chakra. Naruto's brow furrowed. Like hell he is. Chakra reserves don't take that long to recover. He'll just be tired and groggy for a couple of days. He walked over to Kakashi. Wake up you lazy bastard. You gotta brief me on the situation. Snore. Fine. He pulled Kakashi's blanket off from the bed and reached for the pocket where the Junin kept his infamous orange book. As his hand was about to touch the pouch, Kakashi's hand grabbed his wrist and he heard what sounded like a low hiss of, "My precious." Naruto smiled and retracted his hand. Good to see you up, Kaka-sensei. Now can you explain to me what's going on? Kakashi sighed and explained to Naruto what happened and how the Kiri Hunter Nin took away Zabuza's body. Naruto scratched his chin in thought. So you know Zabuza's alive, right? This got the 3 genin who were listening to the conversation to gasp. It only made them feel worse when Kakashi nodded. So what are your plans now that I have showed up? I'm gonna do some extra teaching for the genin and you're going to help me. Okay well what just you are we teaching them? Asked the blonde. We aren't teaching them jutsu yet. Huh, they will be learning tree climbing. The Junin said with an eye smile. Are you serious, Kaka-sensei? You haven't taught them that yet. And you've had this team for a few months. Jiraiya-sama released his new book the day after I was assigned the team, so. Jesus Christ. I'm going to bed and we can figure out what we are doing in the morning, said the exasperated blonde. See ya in the morning and get ready for tomorrow. Wait, who? Not much production from his part, unless you count all the clones he sent to the bridge with Tazuna, that is. No, the reason it has been a good day so far would be his level of amusement. Instructing these genin on how to climb trees with their chakra was gold. It has been a little over an hour into the training and none of them had gotten it. The pink-haired girl, Sakura her name was, had gotten pretty far and would get there in the next few minutes. The pale one, Sai, had not gotten all that far but it really didn't look like he was struggling. Just giving up about halfway up. He would talk to Kakashi-sensei about this kid later. But the best one was the Uchiha. He could only get about a third of the way up the tree before he added too much chakra and burst off the tree. The man who thought he was the king of the village was doing worse than himself when he had learned it. He was having trouble because of his larger than most genin reserves, but the real thing that was holding him back was his anger. The more he tried and didn't get it, the angrier he got. The angrier he got, the more chakra he would pump into his feet. It was hilarious to watch him oh so gracefully land flat on his back time and time again. Maybe he should give the kid a couple more tips on how to do it better. Nah, I did it. Naruto looked up to the tree where Sakura was training. There she was sitting on the top branch with a smile that was almost as wide as her giant forehead. Almost. He glanced over to the other 2 to see their reactions. Sai didn't look like anything had changed. Just that same blank look that he has had on his face the whole time he has been around the genin team. Sasuke, though, was visibly seething. His face was red with anger and, was that steam coming out of his ears? Either way, he was pissed that this fangirl who didn't know any jutsu other than the 3 academy prerequisites had completed this exercise before he had gotten even as far halfway. What do I do next? He heard her say, snapping him out of his thoughts. Well, I hate to tell you to keep doing it, but, just kidding, I don't have any problems with that. You need to keep doing this until your teammates finish or you run out of chakra completely, the Jinchuriki replied. Sakura gaped in shock. Why? I finished the exercise like you told me to. Shouldn't I get a break? Naruto sighed at her attitude. No. Sorry to burst your bubble, but the only reason that you finished this task so fast was because it is a chakra control exercise. This is easy for someone like you because you don't have the reserves of a shinobi or even a decent academy student. I'm guessing that you are from a civilian family. Sakura nodded with a down expression on her face. It was true. She is the first person in her family line to become a shinobi. Her mother had nearly shit her pants when she was informed that her only daughter wanted to join the academy to become a kunoichi. And you haven't worked on building or controlling your reserves at all, have you? Sakura looked up there. I did do the leaf sticking exercise. Would you have done it unless you were asked in the academy? She shook her head and looked down. You know, you don't even look like you have tried to train your body at all either. You are way too thin for a shinobi and have virtually no muscle on your body. Thinking about it, even training your body to where it should be at this point in your career would boost your reserves a huge amount. Sakura was shrinking down from Naruto's gaze more and more as he talked. It was all true. She had never once gone out and worked on, well, anything that pertained to her career as a kunoichi. Instead, she had worked on dieting and trying to be desirable for Sasuke-kun. She was broken from her thoughts as the blonde started talking again. Instead of working on this exercise anymore, you will be working on your physical condition. Come here. She did so, and as she stood next to him, he unsealed a pair of seal tags and scribbled down some kanji on them. What are you doing? Naruto glanced up and back down as he went back to making the seals. I'm making weight seals. I'm going to put these seals on your arms, legs, and torso to work out your body while I have you run laps. This will bring up your reserves by balancing out your yin and yang balance. You have a lot of yin chakra circulating because of your intelligence, but you have almost no yang chakra. Balancing it out will help boost your reserves, as well as build on the good control you already have. He attached to the seals to each of her limbs and in her stomach. That should do it. You see the clearing we are in now? She nodded. I want you to just start running around it. Just go and do it until I say stop. It will suck for you, but even by the end of the day you will be so much better off than you were at the beginning today. So with that, the Rosette took to running slow laps around the clearing while Naruto walked back over to the tree he had been sitting against all morning. Hours later, it was almost dark out and the group of shinobi had begun to walk back to the residence of the bridge builder. Sai and Sasuke looked exhausted from their hours of attempting to master tree climbing, the latter more so than the former, as they trudged on toward Tazuna's house for the night. Sasuke was a bit over halfway done with getting to the branch that was set as the standard for the genin. He was still holding himself back with how angry he would get with the exercise. Sai was a bit better than Sasuke, getting about 3/4 the way up the tree. A little ahead of them, Naruto was carrying a half-dead Sakura on his back. Sakura groaned. I don't have to do that again tomorrow, do I? She pleaded. Naruto smirked. It was great to see others like this after Jiraiya put him through shit that was just as bad or worse. Yeah, you do. I'll have you soak in ice water before you go to bed so you aren't as sore in the morning, but you'll do more physical conditioning. She groaned again. Don't be like that. You have a lot of promise, you know. Sakura craned her neck a bit to look at his face. What? I thought I was so behind it wasn't even funny. Naruto lightly nodded a bit. You are. But I feel like you have the potential to be great. Your chakra control is exceptional. Granted, it's because you have virtually no reserves, you have the potential to grow your reserves exponentially while continuing to work on your control in just a few days by balancing your chakra out. That, and you have arguably the strongest Junin in the village as your sensei. If you'd show initiative, he might be more willing to show you some genjutsu or point you to a medic nin or something. You have great potential, Sakura. Don't waste it. 3 days later. 3 days. 3 days and the bridge was almost complete. How is that possible, you ask? 'Cause fuck you, that's how. Just kidding. Kakashi was forced out of bed by Naruto the second day and started actually training his students. This left Naruto free to go to the bridge to give all-out support, building the bridge in the form of a couple thousand clones a day. The sun was setting on the Konoha group's third day, and Nami and Naruto was sitting back and relaxing along with a half-drunk Tazuna, each with a saucer in hand and a bottle of sake in between them. Naruto downed another saucer of the drink and looked over to Tazuna. Oi, old drunk, it's almost sunset. Wanna call it a day? Tazuna looked over toward the sun and stretched a bit. Why not? We can get the things necessary for supper tonight if Tsunami needs it, since we're done a bit early. And don't call me that, brat, he shouted at the end. They got up and headed to the house after Naruto dispelled his clones in a few waves. They didn't stay there long, as they did in fact go into town for the groceries. Naruto was shocked at what he saw when they got there. The whole village was looking like the red light district and the slums in Konoha. Not just a part of it, because every village had its own bad parts. But this was ridiculous. The houses were run down, the people were for the most part in rags, and the people that were dressed in rags were in the street. Tazuna noticed Naruto's shocked visage as they walked through the streets. It's horrible, isn't it? Naruto didn't know how to respond, so he just settled for a soft nod and a single word. Why? Tazuna sighed. This, my boy, is what happens when a greedy man who doesn't care about others takes over. This is the reason I lied about the mission, as I'm sure your sensei told you about it already. This is the result of Gato being here. He looks like a simple businessman from the outside, but he has forced monopolies in all of Nami no Kuni's markets and has brought in all sorts drug and slave rings under the cover of his shipping business. The will of my people is broken and Gato is sousing this country dry, making it worse and worse by the day. It won't be much longer before even our daimyo goes bankrupt. If we can build this bridge, then we can open up trade that doesn't include Gato as the middleman. This bridge, while also give our people hope, showing them that Gato can be beaten. Naruto could only nod. This bridge needed to be finished. All of this suffering, and for what? So a fat midget could sit in a nice mansion could kick his feet up with an expensive bottle of sake. He clenched his fists at the thought. He and Tazuna didn't talk much during the grocery trip, Naruto's mind being occupied and all. Later. Dinner had been pleasant so far. Tazuna made small talk with Naruto and Kakashi. Sakura and Tsunami were giggling about girlish things, and Sasuke, and Inari were pretty much silent. At this pace, we should be finished with the bridge in the next 2 days or so. Naruto has been a gift from Kami with the extra help, Tazuna said after finishing off the last of his stew. Naruto just rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Ma, it's not that big of a deal. Tazuna chuckled a bit. You don't know how wrong you are about that. This is the first step into liberating our country from Gato. You have been so helpful into getting us that much closer to freedom. Naruto blushed a bit from the praise. Well, as long as I'm able to help. Why do you even bother? Everyone turned to look at Inari, who was sending Naruto a small scowl. You won't beat Gato. People have tried and no one has won. Just go home before you die. Naruto just looked at the kid. What happened to make you lose hope, Inari? Inari glared at Naruto and slammed his fist down onto the table. Gato happened. He came in and took over everything and is making our lives terrible. But you wouldn't know about that, Mr. Konoha. You and your big village with all your fancy things. Just go home before you die. Naruto just shook his head sadly and chuckled a bit. This just made Inari even more angry. What the hell is so funny? Naruto looked at him with a sad smile. I used to be like you, ya know. Things haven't always been good for me. Not until my godfather came and started to raise and train me. He gave me the hope I needed. Maybe we can give you yours. He finished with his patent-pending fox grin. You don't know anything. Inari spat out as he stormed away from the table and up to his room. Naruto frowned and muttered, more than you know. He then turned to Kakashi. Oi, sensei. I'm going to go look around and think for a bit. Don't worry if I come back late. Kakashi just looked up from his porn and gave him a nod. The next morning, Naruto's mindscape. That's actually a really good way for me to get Kakashi-sensei's mask off, Naomi-chan. Naruto said as he laughed along with Naomi and his mother in the living room of the house he had in the mindscape. Hey, Ka-chan. Yes, Naru-chan. As you know, I'm going to Uzushiogakure ruins right after this mission is over. Is there anywhere I would need to look for the Shinigami's mask? Kami thought for a second. I know that there is a special pocket dimension that you can access through the Uzumaki clan head's building. If I were them, that's where I would keep my important things. In the office, there is a ceiling array that appears once a day at around noon where the desk is or was depending on how much destruction happened during the invasion. It will appear for 15 minutes each day at noon. To access the pocket dimension, or room we'll call it, you need to cut your finger and smear your blood across the center of the seal. Since you are an Uzumaki, you will be able to enter into the room. You might be able to stay in there for longer than the 15 minutes, but you also might not be able to. Just be aware of the time. Also, the smearing of the blood reminds me. To get into Uzushiogakure, you will need to cut the palm of your hand and stick it into the water when you get pretty close to the whirlpools. Without doing that, you and whatever boat you bring will be soused into the whirlpools that surround the island. Naruto nodded and flashed her a thumbs up. Sounds good. Thanks, Ka-chan. Naru-kun, someone is approaching your body. They have about mid-chunin level reserves, so it can't possibly be a civilian. Naomi interrupted. Naruto looked over to her and nodded. Thanks, Naomi-chan. He got up and gave her a quick peck on the lips. I'll be back tonight. He walked over to his mother and gave her a hug and a goodbye before he left the mindscape. Middle of the forest. Naruto opened his eyes slowly and stretched a bit. That's when he noticed a flinch out of the corner of his eye to his left. He looked over to see a girl with long black hair and soft eyes. She looked about his age, normal body proportions to a teenage girl, and although it was mostly hidden behind the pink kimono she wore, she had quite a bit more muscle tone than a normal civilian girl, an indication of her being a kunoichi if her chakra levels weren't enough. Are you alright? She asked, breaking him from his thoughts. You shouldn't be sleeping out in the forest at night. You could get sick or be hurt by a wild animal. Naruto chuckled a bit and smirked a bit when he looked up. Thanks for the concern, but I think we both know that I will be just fine. What do you mean? She asked hesitantly. Naruto sighed. You can stop the civilian girl act. You know that I'm a shinobi and I can tell that you are too, and judging you by your chakra levels, you aren't a green one either. And please refrain from attacking me, I don't want to fight right now and I don't think you do either. The girl sighed and relaxed a bit, while making sure to maintain a good distance from the blonde. Very well. Naruto cracked his neck and stood up, making the kunoichi stiffen again. So, I'm guessing you have been hired by Gato, seeing how this country doesn't have shinobi and that you don't have a headband. She just kept observing him for a few seconds. After a few moments, she muttered out, I suppose. Naruto frowned and put his hands up. Hey, I'm being nice here. Haven't even moved to attack you. You could just answer my questions. Haku sat there silent, looking for a way to escape. That depends on what you want to know. How many of you has he hired? Enough of us. Naruto growled. Listen, because of Gato, there are literally thousands of people dying. You've seen the village, haven't you? Yes. She replied, looking down to her feet. Naruto's frown deepened. Then you know that people are suffering because of Gato. Do you really want to be one of the people that is responsible for all of this? She started but couldn't finish. Naruto waited for her to finish for a few moments before he spoke again. Why? He asked. What do you mean why? She asked in return. Why work for Gato? He looked her straight in the eye. I can tell that you don't want this. Why do all of this when you don't like the outcome? She looked up to meet his eyes. Because my master was the one hired. My master is my most precious person and I will follow him anywhere he goes. So your master was the one that was hired? Haku gave a short nod. Is your master Momochi Zabuza? Haku hesitantly nodded. Can I meet with him? Naruto asked. No. Naruto frowned. I promise I will do nothing to harm him. He is probably still banged up from fighting Kakashi-sensei, isn't he? She didn't answer. I'll take that as a yes, he said. You have my word that I will not do anything to harm him. I just want to talk to him. And Uzumaki Naruto does not ever go back on his word. The girl thought about it for a moment. Should she really be able to trust this guy? He is the enemy that they were hired to take out if they got in the way after all. I will take you to him. She finally relented. As long as you keep your word. Naruto flashed her another one of his trademark grins. Great. The name is Uzumaki Naruto, by the way. The girl giggled at his exuberant personality. Nice to meet you. My name is Yuki Haku. Naruto nodded with a smile. Nice to meet you too, Haku-chan. You think we can go to see Zabuza now? Haku nodded. Yes, but first I must pick some herbs. These are important for Zabuza-sama's recovery. That's fine, Naruto replied as he made a couple hundred clones, who jumped off into the trees as soon as they were created. I just had to make those clones to help the old drunk. She looked at him questionably. Tazuna-san. He drinks a ton, so he is the old drunk. Naruto stated in a matter-of-fact tone. Haku just nodded and chalked it up to his personality. Zabuza's hideout. Haku and Naruto landed in front of a large hut after tree jumping from the clearing they met in. During the short trip to Zabuza's hideout, they each talked about their abilities and what they did for fun. One interesting thing that Naruto learned about Haku was her Kekkei Genkei, the Hyoten ice release. Naruto then thought about asking Haku to teach him the basics of Hyoten, but decided to save that for later. Naruto looked at the hut, then around the area surrounding it. Is this where Zabuza is? Haku nodded while walking toward the door, which had a small ceiling matrix on it. Wait, Naruto said, stopping her from going in just yet. Is Gato's place anywhere near here and is he here now? Haku nodded. Yes. He has a mansion about a mile east of here. He has been out of town doing other business lately but is to return tomorrow. Why? Naruto seemingly ignored her question and created 5 Bunshin, who then headed east. He turned back to his female guide. I'll explain later, just know that I'm investigating something. Haku raised an eyebrow but let it go, knowing that he would explain to Zabuza whatever he did. She then unlocked the seal which kept the door locked and went inside with Naruto following. She walked over to the side and there laid Zabuza, in all his glory, sleeping like a baby. She gently nudged his shoulder to wake him up. Zabuza-sama, wake up. There is someone here to see you, she said softly. Zabuza stirred. He yawned and rubbed his eyes, still laying down. Haku, tell me you have that herb mixture ready, he said as he shut his eyes again, not noticing the blonde behind Haku. Haku frowned. Not yet, Zabuza-sama. I have the herbs necessary, but the mixture is not ready yet. But there is someone that I met that wants to speak with you. Zabuza opened his eyes and let them adjust. He turned to look at Haku, but all he noticed was the blonde teen behind her. He started to panic as he noticed the Konoha Hitai 8. Haku, why would you bring him here? Have you betrayed me? He screamed. Haku immediately kneeled down by her master. No, Zabuza-sama, I would never betray you. He promised that he only wanted to talk and that he meant no harm to you. Naruto took this time to intervene. It's true, Zabuza-san. I am not here to kill you, but to talk. Just a simple conversation, he said as he put his hands in above his head. Zabuza narrowed his eyes as he looked at the blonde, observing his body language and eyes for any signs of deceit. Haku, he said as he turned his head to her, you always were too soft and trusting. Go make that herb mixture now. He turned his head back to the blonde as Haku went to the other side of the hut. Alright, what do you want? Naruto looked the man dead in his eyes. I want to know why you took this job. Zabuza raised an eyebrow. That's a stupid question, kid. Humor me. Naruto replied. Do you know how much Gato is paying me? I bet you'd turn on your village for the amount he's paying me. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this. How much is he paying you? Zabuza chuckled. Sorry kid, that's a need-to-know thing. And you don't need to know. Naruto frowned. I think it is. If Gato is paying you how much it sounds like, I don't think he'll actually pay you. Zabuza narrowed his eyes again. You don't know what you're talking about. I think I do. Naruto shot back. Gato is a manipulator. A selfish, cheap manipulator that doesn't hesitate to kill people for his own gain. He is probably not even going to pay you when this is all said and done. Just hire a ton of thugs or some cheaper missing nin to dispose of you. Zabuza thought about it. It's possible. But then again, it could just be speculation and I'll be loaded enough to find a place that's far enough away from the hunter nin that are chasing me. Naruto smiled. I think I can do something for you, if that's what you're after. And what, exactly, would that be? The swordsman asked. Refuge, replied the blonde. Explain. Naruto nodded. I could bring you to Konoha with me. Not a chance. Zabuza replied immediately. Why not? I am an A- ranked missing nin. They would send me straight to Kiri in hopes of getting an alliance. I know how villages work. Naruto smirked. What if I told you that I have a way to prevent that? I would tell you that I'm listening. Naruto's smirk got wider. I may not look like much, but I am actually a clan head. In Konoha, I, Uzumaki Naruto, have re-established the Uzumaki clan. I have also been granted full clan rights by the Hokage himself. I can name you a vassal of the Uzumaki clan. I really don't care much for servants, so it basically just gives you the protection of the Uzumaki clan, gets the Hokage to pardon you of any sentences and crimes, and you get to build yourself a nice place within the borders of my compound. You could then become a shinobi of Konoha or do whatever else you would want to do to earn money for yourself. Zabuza raised an eyebrow. You're an Uzumaki. They had red hair. My father had blonde hair. My mother was an Uzumaki. Plus, he pulled down a lock of his hair, red tips. How do I know that Gato's deal isn't better? Naruto gave a victorious smirk and turned to Haku. Oi, Haku-chan. He said, getting her attention. What did I ask and do before we came inside? Haku walked over with a glass of green liquid and handed it to Zabuza. As her master began to drink, she turned back to the blonde and answered his question. You asked where Gato lived and made 5 clones of some sort. Naruto nodded, smirk still on his face. Exactly. I sent 4 clones to go through Gato's mansion as well as one to interrogate a few of his goons. Zabuza's small eyebrow raised in curiosity. Not even he had thought to look through Gato's mansion or to interrogate any of the random thugs he had hired. And what did you find? I found the spot where he keeps all of his records and financial plans. He doesn't have a big amount of money going out to anyone anytime soon. And when I interrogated one of the thugs guarding the place, he said that they were to be ready to take out ninja on the bridge on a moment's notice. Naruto said with an, I told you so look. Zabuza scowled. That little bastard planned on betraying me, huh? He gained a vicious smirk and looked over to Naruto. Hey kid, I accept your offer on one condition. Naruto coasted his head to the side in confusion. What is it? I want to be the one who takes Gato out. Zabuza replied with the vicious smirk on his face. Naruto nodded. Gato did screw Zabuza over almost as much as he did to the people of Wave. I don't have a problem with that. Now let me mark you as a vassal. This seal is mainly just for show, but it will be necessary to getting the council to believe that I have actually made you my vassal. Also it's a little fail-safe for if you try to kill me or my precious people. Zabuza nodded. Whatever. As long as I'm not on the run from the Kiri hunter nin. Sweet. Naruto said before he turned to Haku. You're coming too, right? Haku nodded. If Zabuza-sama goes, then I will follow. Naruto nodded and motioned for them to sit down in front of him. They did so and he drew the Uzumaki spiral on both of their necks. He moved behind Zabuza and bit his thumb. He ran through a few hand seals and landed on the snake seal. He then placed his right hand on top of the seal with his left hand wrapped around his wrist. Uzumaki Hagaijime Fuin, Kashin. Uzumaki Binging Seal, Vassal. The seal on Zabuza's neck glowed for a second then faded to look like a Norman seal or tattoo. Naruto looked at it for a minute then nodded in approval. How do you feel, Zabuza? Zabuza shrugged. I feel fine. Not really much different than before you put the seal on. One of Naruto's eyebrows raised and he coasted his head to the side slightly. Zabuza noticed this. Why do you look like you're confused? Was I supposed to feel something? Naruto rubbed his chin. Well, most dealings end up with pain that is extreme enough to render the person being sealed unconscious. Zabuza had a blank look on his face. You thought that was gonna happen? He asked. Naruto shrugged. Well, yeah, and you didn't tell me beforehand. Zabuza screamed. Naruto blushed and rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Well, I didn't think to tell you about it. Zabuza just facepalmed. Whatever, just give Haku the seal already. Naruto repeated the sealing process with Haku and made sure she was okay after. Then he turned back to Zabuza. So what do I tell Kakashi-sensei? Do you want to surprise everybody or just me tell my sensei or what? Zabuza thought about it for a moment. Just tell your sensei. I couldn't care less if the others know, I just want to be able to see the shock on Gato's face when I tear through his fat little neck with Kubikiraboucho. Naruto just gave a nod. The bridge should be finished in at the end of tomorrow. Just be there sometime tomorrow and make sure Gato knows you're going so he shows up as well. Zabuza just waved him off. Whatever, brat. See you tomorrow. Don't you mean Uzumaki-sama? Get the fuck out of here, kid. That night at dinner, as everyone else was finishing up with dinner, Naruto asked Kakashi to talk privately upstairs. What's up, Naruto? It's about Zabuza. Kakashi got serious real quick. What happened? Did you find him and that fake hunter Nin this morning? Naruto nodded. I did, but that's not the issue. Zabuza is with us now. Gato is planning on betraying him, so he is siding with us. He's going to come back to Konoha as a vassal of the Uzumaki clan. Kakashi sighed. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I can't allow that. He's too dangerous of a shinobi to try that with. Naruto smirked. Too bad it's already done. They've already pledged allegiance to me and I have in turn marked them as vassals of the Uzumaki clan with a clan seal that I got in one of Ka-san's Fuinjutsu scrolls. Kakashi sighed and rubbed the uncovered temple. Fine. You've already done it, so there's no point in arguing. But you do realize that you are now responsible for anything that they do now, right? Yup. Kakashi shook his head at his first student. Why do you want them to come back with you so badly anyway? What? People don't deserve a second chance. Kakashi's uncovered eyebrow raised. Is that really the only reason you are doing this? Nope. The fake hunter Nin, Haku, has a bloodline that I could be taught. She wields the Hyoten bloodline. This is something I might never come across again, since she said her whole clan was murdered in Kiri a while back. That and they do deserve another chance. Kakashi nodded reluctantly. So what is your plan for Gato? Well, Gato is planning on ambushing us all at the bridge tomorrow. Naruto started. I promised Zabuza we would let him finish off Gato, so I figured that you could leave a cage bunshin here with your genin team in case Gato sends a thug or two here and you could help Haku, Zabuza, and myself out at the bridge. Or you could just stay here since, according to Zabuza, Gato hasn't hired any other shinobi. Kakashi nodded. Sounds like a plan. I'll stay here with my team. If Gato does happen to send thugs or worst case scenario, a shinobi that Zabuza didn't know about, it will be a good time for them to get their first kills. Sounds like a plan, Naruto said before going back downstairs. The bridge the next day. Naruto and Tazuna were watching the clones put the finishing touches on the bridge when Naruto felt two chakra signatures appear to the side of him. Upon seeing Zabuza and Haku, Naruto knew that things were going according to plan. What he didn't realize was that Tazuna didn't know about the plan and promptly made a noise that no grown man should make. Naruto, they're back. The aged bridge builder shrieked as he ducked behind the Chunin. Naruto just raised an eyebrow and cursed when he remembered that he forgot to tell Tazuna about the plan. Don't worry, you old drunk, they're with me now. We are going to take out Gato today. That's if he shows up. The blonde said. Haku stepped forward. Zabuza-sama had me interrogate on of the guards. Gato is in fact going to show up at the bridge at any time. Naruto nodded and closed his eyes. He stretched out his sensor abilities as far as he could to try to sense the small army of thugs. He could feel them at the edge of his sensor field, coming this way. They were still about 3/4 of a mile out. Naruto opened his eyes and turned to his two new comrades. I can sense them heading this way. They're still a good ways off, though. Let's move off the bridge so it doesn't get hurt when we take out Gato's thugs. Zabuza shrugged. If it's alright with you, I'm just going to take Gato and go someplace else. That overconfident midget needs to suffer. You and Haku can handle the rest of the entourage. As the group neared the end of the bridge, they could see the small army of thugs being led by Gato coming up to them. When Gato got close enough to see that Zabuza was standing and simply conversing with the enemy, he shouted at his employee. Zabuza, what the hell are you doing? I am paying you to kill the bridge builder. Zabuza smirked. Oh really, Gato? You were actually planning on paying me. What changed? Gato flinched. How could he have possibly found out? He hadn't told anyone that he wasn't going to pay the nin. What are you talking about? Zabuza used the Shunshin body flicker to get close enough to grab Gato by the neck. Why don't we have a little private chat, boss man? And with that, Zabuza and Gato were gone. Seeing their employer disappear and looking like he wouldn't come back, the thugs started to ask each other what they should do. One guy near the front took charge and yelled out to the rest. Oi, let's kill the people on the bridge and then go sack the town for valuables and women. He shouted to his fellow thugs. Yeah, the rest shouted back. And with that, they began to charge towards Naruto and Haku. Meanwhile, the two aforementioned shinobi and kunoichi were standing calmly, watching the thugs run toward them. Naruto turned to Haku. Can I try something? Haku just nodded, curious to see what the blonde would do. Naruto closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and put his left hand in a half-ram seal as he began to channel Naomi-chan's chakra. He opened his eyes and raised his right arm parallel to the ground and pointing at the thugs, hand spread open. As the thugs got to about 50 yards away from the blonde, he closed his hand into a fist. The next day, the Konoha group was sent off by the whole village. Later on that day, Zabuza came walking through the town with Gato's head on a wooden stake. The rest was history and the whole group were forever heroes of Wave. As the pack of Konoha shinobi got to the end of the bridge, Naruto stopped the group to talk to Kakashi. Kakashi-sensei, I need you to take Zabuza and Haku to my compound as soon as you get done talking to Gigi. Give Gigi this scroll and also I have a scroll for you to give Pakurani-chan. I'll be back in Konoha in 4 days and yes Gigi knows about this. Kakashi just gave him an eye smile and a thumbs up. If Hokage-sama knows about it, then I'm good. Naruto nodded and took off south for his little vacation. Uzu and the search for Tsunade. Gurgle. Oh fuck. Naruto moaned out as he threw up over the side of the large boat. It had been a day since he left his team at Nami no Kuni and he was now right outside of the borders of Mizu no Kuni heading southwest toward Uzu Island. He actually found a bigger boat that would take him out to where the whirlpools began so he didn't have to figure out how he was going to navigate himself all the way to the island. How was he supposed to know where he was when looking at the map? Our hero choked out after wiping his mouth of vomit. Naomi-chan, shouldn't my healing factor that you give me fix this? This is fucking terrible. He heard the vixen dying from all the laughter inside his mind. Consider it your turn, Koibito. Naruto cursed. She was holding back the healing factor on purpose. You see, there has been a little prank war going back and forth between the two lovers ever since Naruto and his adoptive mother had turned on the cool air and doused Naomi with water while she was sleeping. Naruto chuckled a bit. Naomi's tails were still green at the tips from his last prank. He would need to think of something good. Preferably when she was sleeping. Naomi is a really deep sleeper. Why you are so going to get it Ibui, he puked out over the side of the boat before he could finish his words. One of the crew members, who happened to be the captain, came up behind him and rubbed his back a bit. Ain't got ya sea legs yet, It'll come eventually. You're about to get off soon anyway. Ya can see the island and the whirlpools are about 100 yards out. Sure enough, there were the whirlpools straight ahead. Naruto nodded at the guy and gave him a sack with the 100,000 ryo, 100 ryo equals $1. Sorry international folks that the crew had asked for due to making a trip out there for no reason relevant to them. Appreciate it. You'll be back here in 3 days for another 50,000 ryo, right? The seaman nodded. Aye. If ya got the ryo, we got the ship. See ya in a few days, kid. Naruto nodded as he turned to walk off the side of the boat, but paused right as he was about to jump. Oi, Oji-san. He yelled back at the captain, getting said man to turn around. Do you have a plank I can walk? I have always wanted to do that. The captain face faulted and appeared right behind Naruto with a sword in his hand. What do ya think we are, laddie? We try to make an honest living in the shipping business and you think that we are pirates. He yelled furiously. Naruto just paled and waved his hands. I didn't say that. The captain just looked at him with his eyes narrowed as he unsheathed his sword. Oh, but you did, laddie. I won't take this insult on me. Ship laying down. You. He yelled as he pointed his sword at Naruto. We'll walk the plank. Naruto chuckled a bit before playing along, shifting his facial expression to a horrified one. No, please. I have to get back to my village. They need me. The captain just walked over to the side where a small crank was and began turning it. As the crank turned, sure enough, a plank appeared over the side. When he was done cranking, he opened a small portion of the railing that was fixed like a gate and walked back behind Naruto, pointing the sword at him once more. There is no turning back, laddie. What has been said has been said. It is time for you to see Davy Jones' locker. He yelled as he walked toward Naruto with sword at the Jinchuriki's back. Naruto saw it was time to walk the plank and got onto the long piece of wood, turning around to face the ship at the edge. Farewell, cruel world. I give all of my loot to my village. I will haunt the seas for the days to come. I will. Oi, Naruto. The captain yelled. I got a doctor's appointment in Mizu at the port. We came from around noon. It was fun for a minute, but let's go. Naruto laughed at the seaman. Sorry, Oji-san. Got carried away. See you in 3 days. And with that, Naruto jumped off the edge of the boat with a backflip. The rotation wasn't what the crew were looking for, so they only gave him 7 out of 10 style points. He walked on the water all the way out to the first whirlpool. He knelt down, sliced his hand with a kunai, and stuck it into the water. The salt water stung a bit, but he didn't have his hand in the water long before a line in the water glowed a faint red and headed straight to the island. All the whirlpools that were in the way of the line simply stopped spinning. He figured that he didn't have all that much time before they appeared again, so he took off in a dead sprint over the line toward the island. On the island, an hour later. Naruto was freaking excited when he first got on the island. He could actually find out about who his ancestors, and by proxy, who he himself was. But when he walked through the village for a bit, he fell to his knees at the amount of destruction that was Uzushiogakure. The Uzumaki had expected some destruction. The clan had been wiped out by 3 villages, after all. But not this kind of destruction. There was nothing but ruin. No buildings. At all. I guess you could say that there were buildings, but they were toppled over, crumbled up stone, covered with the ash and soot that would have come at the hands of a great fire. There had been earthquakes, storms, and flooding from the look of things. There was no mercy. It was complete annihilation. It was war. It was in this moment that Naruto realized what Jiraiya had meant. Before, he thought he had understood what Ero Sennin meant in his talks about war and how it brought nothing but pain. But now, he felt true sorrow. He wept on his knees for his deceased kin. All the men, women, and children, all the precious life snatched away because of fear. Because of fear. They had done nothing wrong, but were killed because of the fear that they would become too powerful. Ero Sennin told him that he believed that someday the world would change. That there would be a time where people truly understood each other. A time where there would be no more war. Naruto didn't know how that was going to happen, but he now knew that it needed to happen. This sort of destruction and suffering shouldn't have a place in this world. It was in this moment that another epiphany came to him. He will change this world for the better. Konoha, 4 days later. Naruto knocked on the door of the Hokage's office and walked in when he heard the muffled enter from behind it. He walked in to see his leader and grandfather figure behind the large oak desk with a small smile on his face. Hello, Naruto-kun. How was the trip to Uzu? Naruto looked down with a frown on his face. There was nothing. It was just ruins. There was just destruction, he said softly. The Sandaime frowned as he closed his eyes and cursed in his head. He had forgotten how bad it truly was. He actually had not been to Uzu since he was a teenager, visiting with Tobirama-sensei. When the news of the invasion of Uzu came to Konoha, it had been too late. The teams he sent as backup gave the report of the fall of the Uzumaki and had told how bad it was. He would not have let the young Jinchuriki go if he had remembered. He didn't want it to be on his conscience or for the boy to seek revenge on the countries that orchestrated the attack. Kami knows in a few years he'll be able to take on villages. And what are your thoughts on it? Will you seek revenge for your fallen kin? Asked the aged Cage. He was surprised when he saw the teen shake his head, still looking down, and also by the words of the blonde. No, that's not what they'd want. Most of them anyway. I just want to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. No one deserves that, not even the people who did it in the first place. Naruto looked up to lock eyes with the Sandame. That's why I'll change the world. Starting with taking that hat. He finished with a huge grin. The Sandame felt immensely relieved. The boy truly had a pure heart. Well, it's about damn time someone tried to take this freaking hat. I thought I would be doing this forever. He cleared his throat and got serious again. Now I think it's time that I hear your report, why you used it on the bridge and why the fuck you think it was a good idea to bring an A-rank missing nin into our village. Naruto sighed. He knew this was coming. Okay, is it really that bad? I already sealed them so they can't do anything. Plus we get a really good if not insane Junin to match the rest and a girl that holds a Kekkei Genkai to teach me how to use said Kekkei Genkai. Kiri can't demand them because they are officially voluntary servants to the Uzumaki clan. Not that they're actually my servants, but that is what they technically are. When Naruto looked back at the Hokage, he saw the man's head buried in his hands and swiveling from side to side. This is why I'm going to be doing this until I die. This shit's gonna kill me. Okay, why did you use a jutsu that I had forbid unless Jiraiya or I are present? Naruto rubbed the back of his head and gave a sheepish grin. I wanted to try it out again. He saw the Sandame open his mouth but cut him off. It worked though. And I didn't pass out. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes. Okay, so I collapsed afterward, but I didn't fall unconscious. I think you worry too much, Gigi. Hiruzen sighed. Just go home, Naruto-kun. Please, don't come back until tomorrow. And don't use that jutsu again until I or Jiraiya sees you practice and give the okay. Naruto grinned and turned to leave. Will do, Gigi. Is Ero Sennin in town? Hiruzen shook his head. No, he went to investigate a lead on my wayward student. Naruto nodded. He knew how his master got about Orochimaru. What about Pakura Ne-chan? Sarutobi thought for a minute. She should be. Came back from a mission 2 days ago and she hasn't been in to request another mission since. Naruto nodded. Alright, Gigi. See ya later, he said as he turned to exit the office. Now to see what Ne-chan has been up to. Naruto. Said person stopped to look back. Are you going to be okay with what you saw? Do you need a little bit of time? Asked Hiruzen. He wanted to make sure that his surrogate grandson wasn't thrown back into work if he was still suffering from the destruction of his family. Naruto just shook his head slightly. Nah, I don't think I do. It would have been different if I had actually lived or grown up there. It just really sucked to find out that everything that my family had built is gone. There is just nothing left. Well, not all of it. Naruto's head snapped up like a rocket and he could slightly feel Naomi's anxiousness. She might have tried to conceal it to a degree, but when they found Uzushio in complete ruins, she was worried that she would never get out of the seal. Of course there was a possibility that she could get out eventually when Naruto got to a good enough level of Fuinjutsu, but she wanted out much sooner than later and it was not even a 100% chance that he could unlock or bypass a seal made with the influence of the Shinigami. It was even less likely due to the fact that they didn't have her yin portion yet. There is an old mask storage temple right outside of the north gate right here in Konoha, finished the old man. Naruto got even more interested. A mask storage temple? What else is there? The old Hokage thought about it. To be honest, I don't really know. Not containing Uzumaki blood, I was never able to enter by myself due to the powerful seals on the only entrance to the temple and neither your mother nor Mito-sama would allow me to enter with them. I can write the directions down in a scroll for you if you'd like. Naruto smiled. How freaking lucky that the mask storage temple was right outside his home village. That would be great. Naruto caught the scroll with the directions. I'll look into it, Gigi. I'll see you in the next couple of days for a mission. Uzumaki compound. Naruto appeared in the compound with a shunshin and scanned the compound for chakra signatures to find Pakura. He opened his eyes and headed inside as he found her in the jutsu library with Haku. When he got to the open door of the jutsu library, he found the two women conversing. They didn't seem to notice him, so he activated Jiraiya's Maiseigakur no Jutsu, hiding with the camouflage technique, as he sneaked toward the two. What he didn't pay attention to was the quiet conversation between the two. Without either turning their head toward the Jinchuriki, Haku spoke. Does Naruto-sama not realize that we know he's there? He has more chakra than the two of us combined and he hasn't concealed it. Pakura giggled. No, Haku-chan, he doesn't. He'll most likely go for me, so freeze him when he gets behind me. And don't refer to him so highly. He's an idiot. Naruto got right behind Pakura and was about to startle her, but before he could, he was covered from the neck down with ice. He dropped the jutsu as the two women turned to him with amused looks on their faces. Haku glanced over to Pakura, then back to Naruto. That may be, but he is now my master. Pakura smirked as she got in Naruto's face. You know, we felt you arrive as you appeared in the compound, right? You are the definition of a chakra battery, Naruto-kun. Plus you couldn't sneak up on me if you tried. Haven't you learned in the months we have lived together? Naruto ignored his sister's taunting and looked over to Haku. Can you let me out now? I might get frostbite in a place that I really don't want it in. Haku giggled before dropping the field of ice around the Jinchuriki. Naruto shivered as he felt the air through his now moist clothes. He smirked and picked Pakura up in a giant hug. Pakura squealed from the surprise at being picked up as well as the fact that she was now wet too. After the commotion died down and some greetings took place, Naruto turned to the two women. So, there is a temple that belongs to the Uzumaki clan outside the village that potentially holds something that will be really useful. You two down to check it out with me? Sorry Naruto-sama, but Zabuza-sama and I are still setting up our house in the compound. I was just taking a small break by talking with Pakura-chan. I really must get back to helping Zabuza-sama, said Haku as she turned to leave. Naruto nodded and called out to her retreating figure. That's fine. If you and Zabuza want, you should join us for dinner tonight. Haku turned her head back to answer. I will tell Zabuza-sama. Naruto turned back to Pakura. What about you, Nei-chan? I haven't seen you in a week. Why don't you come with me? Pakura nodded. I'll go with you. Honestly, it has been rather boring without you to stir up any excitement around here. As they began walking to the temple as the directions dictated, they simply enjoyed the presence of each other and their conversation. It was the first time they had been separated for longer than a day or two in their months of traveling together. So Gigi said you went on a mission a few days ago. How'd that go? Asked the blonde. It went really well. No flaws in the execution of the mission. Although it was just a B-rank mission with another Junin, Yamashiro Aoba. There was a small missing nin camp outside of the fire temple. We were just sent in so the fire temple monks wouldn't be disturbed, the greenette explained. Sounds a little boring to me, Naruto said as he put his hands behind his head as he walked. Maybe, but Yamashiro-san was nice. He actually asked me out on a date after we gave our mission report. Pakura glanced over at him as she finished, gauging his reaction. During the short time he was away, she had missed him greatly. She had honestly taken him for granted before his mission to Nami and his trip to Uzushiogakure. Every time she had needed someone there to comfort her or to just be around when she didn't want to be alone, he was there. He was a lifeline for her. And while she knew he thought about her as a sister, she had done some thinking lately and that was not what she felt for him. She had come to love the prankster side of his, the way he could find joy in the simplest of moments, his kindness toward others that he doesn't even know, his ability to be oblivious to the things around him at times. While she could be dull and straightforward at times, he balanced that out with his unpredictability. All these things and more just draw her to him. It didn't hurt that he saved her life and was easy on the eyes at all either. Naruto was shocked to his core as he stopped walking and let his hands fall to his sides. He looked at her with a face that said, "Wait, what?" That wasn't just what his face said when he asked, "Wait, what?" Pakura was better at keeping her face neutral as she inwardly smirked but kept her face somewhat passive. This could be a good sign. She stopped for a second before he started walking again so he could catch up. Yamashiro-san asked me out on a date. Naruto's face gained a look that was the combination of an apprehensive one and a calculative one. And what did you say? I told him that I would have to think about it, Being new to the village and all, she replied. She could see the relief written all over her face. It was definitely a good sign. He didn't want her dating other men, if that's what his reaction was telling her. You look relieved, Naruto-kun. Why is that? Naruto cursed to himself. Yeah, he has a crush on his sister figure. She was attractive, a serious kunoichi, and was pleasant to be around. But she was like his big sister, he even called her that. To some degree, he would even say that that thought turned him on a little bit. But she would think he was a freak if she knew that. Plus she was older than him and way more mature. He had to come up with something fast. That's not it. I just, think you need to get fully situated in the village before you start dating, you know. The blonde stammered. Pakura wasn't quite sure what to think with that answer. Usually if he was thinking something, he wouldn't filter it and would just come out and say it. And while she knew him well enough to know that the reason he gave wasn't the truth, she couldn't gauge what the truth was. It looks like sooner or later she would have to make the first move if she wanted anything to happen between the two. It just was a matter of when. The two were so enraptured in their conversation, they didn't even notice the north gate of the village right in front of them until they were under it. Naruto pulled out the scroll with the directions and in a few moments, they were standing in front of a decent-sized temple that had large oak doors with the Uzumaki swirl centered on them. As they got up to the door, they saw a little white sealing paper that was about the size of a notebook in between the two door and in the center of the Uzumaki swirl. It was obvious that with it being an Uzumaki temple that was a blood seal. Naruto took out a kunai and cut his palm. He made his hand into a fist a couple of times to get his hand all bloody, then proceeded to place his hand on the seal. When he pulled it back, the seal seemed to absorb the blood, leaving a blank white sheet again. The sheet then glowed and just disappeared. He turned to Pakura and she nodded for him to go ahead and open the door. She wasn't an Uzumaki by blood, so she didn't want to touch the door. She wasn't going to be the one to get zapped or anything. Naruto pushed the door and it opened just fine, so he opened the other side and both entered the temple. In the middle of the shrine, there was a podium-like structure that had many masks adoring all sides of it. Naomi-chan, can you point out which one is the mask of the Shinigami? If you had taken time to fully use my chakra for yourself, then you could do it yourself. But yes, I can. It's on the left side of the podium. Third row, and it's the fourth one on that row. It's the only one giving off an aura in the room, so if this isn't it, then we'll have to find another way to do it. Don't worry, Naomi-chan. I will find a way, Shinigami's mask or not. I know you will. Sealing the mask in a seal on his forearm, Naruto turned to Pakura. Let me seal the place back up, then we can go home. I just want to relax for now. Uzumaki compound. Naruto and Pakura arrived at the front gates in a shunshin. As they accessed the blood seals that kept the compound secured, Pakura turned to him. What are you going to do now? Mess around with that mask? Naruto just shook his head lightly. Nah, I have no use for this mask at the moment. I think I'm going to go study Two Sands and the Nadime's notes on the Hiraishin no Just You, Flying Thunder God technique, again for the rest of the day. It's so freaking difficult to decipher the seals. I have them somewhat broken down, but I need to figure out how to put it together to make my own formula that works with my chakra. Those two's minds were something else, let me tell you. Actually, Naruto-san, you are needed by the Hokage. Naruto and Pakura looked back to see that an Anbu member was behind them, one that Naruto recognized by her purple hair. Recognizing one of the few Anbu who would actually help him out instead of making sure he didn't die, he ran over and picked her up in a hug. Neko-chan, you're still in Anbu. How has it been? I haven't seen you in forever. Can you set me down? Naruto did so. Thank you. I have been well. If you want to talk, we can set up a time when I am off duty, but as of right now you are needed by the Hokage. Naruto gave the woman a thumbs up. Sounds good. Come and find me when you have some free time so we can chat, alright? And with a nod, she disappeared with a puff of smoke. Naruto turned to Pakura. Looks like I won't get to study the Hiraishin as long as I thought I would. And with that, he jumped off. The Hokage mansion. As Naruto walked into the Hokage's office, he was met with two other faces that he had seen somewhere before but couldn't place the names. He guessed that these were his teammates for the mission. One was a man dressed in all black, trench coat included, except for his silver flak jacket. He was somewhat tall and had a few scars running across his face. And he appeared to be bald, but you wouldn't know with his skull cap that had his Hittite attached to the front. The next one was looking at him in a very scary way. This one happened to be a she too. She was about medium height, had pupilless, brown eyes, and had a very odd hairstyle. First off, she had purple hair, complemented by the fact that it was a short, fan-like ponytail. She wore big, tan trench coat over just a mesh shirt, which left little imagination to the shape of her bigger than average bust. She wore some knee-length mesh shorts under a shorter burnt orange skirt, and the look was finished off by her shin guards that from the top of her feet to her knees. Obviously she was dressing provocatively to distract men before going in for the kill. Or she was just kinky like that. He mentally shrugged and turned to Sarutobi and asked, "What's up, Gigi? Getting another kick as mission?" The Hokage just sighed and shook his head. "No, Naruto-kun. This is more of an assignment than a mission. But you will be paid for AB rank and it will go down on your record as such. This is Morino Ibiki and Mitarashi Anko of the T&I department. These two along with another were slotted to be the proctors in the upcoming Chunin exams, but the other has fallen terminally ill with a serious case of pneumonia. I want you to be the third proctor. It will look good in front of any cages that might come that you are doing this job." Naruto glanced over at the two T&I operatives and back to Hiruzen. "Sure, I'll do it, but what about the other guy? I have already stated that he has fallen terminally ill. No medics that we have can currently cure Hayate-san's illness. He probably only has a few days left. But nevertheless you will all three need to be here in 1 week's time to be briefed on your parts of the Chunin exams. If that is all, you three are dismissed." Ibiki and Anko both headed out of the office, the latter giving him a saucy wink as she left, but Naruto stayed in the office. "Is there something else you want, Naruto-kun?" Naruto looked away and thought. "I'll still do it, but I'm heading out to get Ba-chan tomorrow to heal this guy. I'm not gonna let this guy die if we can save him." Hiruzen raised his eyebrow. "You think you can get her to return?" Naruto nodded with a slight frown. "Yeah, I'm gonna appeal to her sense of family and ask that she come back with probably her only living relative. But it's probably gonna be me paying a bunch of debts and getting killed by Bunta for taking a shit ton of his sake, but regardless I can get her back somehow." Hiruzen deadpanned. "There is no way in hell that you're gonna get that first one to work." Naruto clicked his tongue. "I don't know, Gigi. You're probably right, but she was really fond of me in the few times Ero Sennin, Kakashi-sensei, and I visited her during our training trip. If I offer to let her live with me in the Uzumaki compound to be with her family, she might just take it. I mean, it's gotta be really lonely with just her and Shizune-chan just going around and gambling all the time." Hiruzen just shook his head and sighed. "You don't know Tsunade like I do, Naruto-kun. You're gonna be doing something like the combination of your offers for her to come back to Konoha. We'll see. I'll be taking Nei-chan with me if that's alright." Hiruzen gave a slight nod. "If she wishes to go, then that is fine with me." Naruto nodded and walked out the door with a final salute and goodbye to his Gigi. 2 days later, Tanzaku-gai, nighttime. Naruto and Pakura were eating a meal at a table near one of the busy streets of Tanzaku-gai. They had been searching through the various bars and casinos looking for Naruto's distant cousin. They had been looking in Atofika-gai the night before, as there were several festivals where people would drink and gamble the night away in both towns this time of year. Tsunade wouldn't dare miss this. They were just sitting there and enjoying a meal when a slightly intoxicated villager that was walking along with a small group behind him looked over at them with a smirk on his face, looking straight at Pakura. He was playing it all cool as he strutted over, the smirk still on his face. Once he got over there, he leaned his arm on a post next to their table. "Hey darlin', you want to come with me tonight and have a night you'll never forget?" Pakura opened her mouth to reply, but Naruto beat her to it as he sent the man a hard glare and firmly stated, "Beat it." "She's not interested." The guy just looked over to Naruto and scoffed. "I think the lady can answer herself. Who are you supposed to be anyway, her boyfriend?" Naruto just kept up the hard glare. "I'm her brother, now get lost." The guy just rolled his eyes at Naruto. So she's not here with a date. He turned back to Pakura. Don't worry, baby. I can tell your brother is a spoiled sport and doesn't let you have much fun. I can fix that for you, he said with a wink added onto the end. Naruto was getting sick of this guy's shit. He stood up and got in the guy's face. Listen, bud, she is not interested. The guy didn't think that Naruto looked that tough. He bowed up on Naruto as well. No, you listen, bud. Do you know who I am? Seems you don't, as you're really getting on my nerves. Kurakawa Shinichi, just so you know. My father is the most powerful man in Tanzaku Gai. I could ruin you. So why don't you just leave me and your sister to have some time to ourselves, K? Naruto was about to do something when Pakura stood up. Naruto-kun. Stop it. Shinichi turned back to Naruto with a smirk. Told you she'd want to. Don't worry, though. I'll give her back once I give her the ride of her life. Naruto was now seeing red. Pakura wasn't close enough to save the guy when Naruto picked him up by the neck and threw him into a food cart next to their table. The group of 4 guys went over to pick up Shinichi from the food cart as he struggled to do it himself. As he was helped up, he groaned and looked over to Naruto. I'll ruin you, bastard. Then I'll take your pretty sister for myself, just you wait, he said before they left the area. Pakura shook her head as she walked up to Naruto. She poked him in the chest and said, you need to stop this. I can handle myself, especially when dealing with some snooty civilian. Naruto blew air through his nose. I know. I just didn't like the way he was looking or talking to you. Pakura smirked and got close to his face. Ah, is my little Naruto-kun jealous that others find his sister attractive? Naruto blushed and pushed her back a bit. He didn't answer when he heard slow clapping. You're entertaining as ever, brat. Naruto and Pakura to see a tall, very busty blonde woman in her late 20s looking at them with a woman about the same age standing behind her holding a pig. Naruto smirked. He knew she was bound to be around here somewhere. He walked up to her. What's going on, Ba-chan? Tsunade gained a tick mark on her forehead as he punched him into the ground. How many times have I told you not to call me that? She yelled. Naruto jumped right back up and cracked his neck. I dunno. Lost count. He chuckled out as he embraced her. She returned it and smiled. It's good to see you again, brat. What are you doing out here? Didn't you return to Konoha already? Naruto nodded as he released the hug. Yeah, I did. I was actually looking for you. Tsunade raised an eyebrow, but when she saw Pakura, her face really took on a look confusion. Why are you with Shikuden no Pakura? You know that she's from Suna, right? Naruto nodded. Yeah, I do. She's actually Uzumaki Pakura now, cause I adopted her into my clan. Tsunade's eyebrow rose again. It's a long story, Ba-chan. Why don't you come with me and I'll explain everything. Couple hours later in a hotel, Tanzaku Gai. After getting a couple rooms in a hotel, they all went back to Naruto's room for story time. During this time he talked about how they met Pakura, how the missions had been so far, and why they were here now. Tsunade wasn't stoked for the last part of the explanation. Gaki, you know why I don't want to go back to Konoha. And even if I did go back, Sensei would most definitely pressure me to become Hokage. You know damn well how I feel about that. Naruto huffed. Yeah, I know. And you know that I disagree with you. But if it's what it takes to get you back, I can promise you that Gigi won't pressure you into becoming Hokage. He'll ask, I can't stop that, but I can stop him from forcing you to take it. Come on, Ba-chan. Don't you want to be with your family? It's just me right now, but I'm sure we'll find other Uzumaki. You can't tell me it's lonely with just you and Shizune-chan. Oink. And Tun-tun. Tsunade sighed. You know how I feel about the village in general, though. It reminds me too much of Nawaki and Dan. Naruto looked up in exasperation. Ba-chan. My mother and father were killed in that village too. And I was ignored and made to look non-existent for the first 8 years of my life there. It's not healthy for you to dwell on the past and hold a grudge on the village. Plus, Dan died in the war, on a mission he volunteered for. Don't care how it happened, this is how it happened in my story. If you want to blame anyone for Nawaki's death, blame Orochimaru. He was the one that sent him on a suicide mission. Tsunade at this point was in tears. She simply didn't know how to react to the statements of the blonde. She knew deep down it was true. It wasn't the title of Hokage's fault that Nawaki and Dan died, but that didn't make their deaths any easier. After all, whoever said time heals all things was a liar. Naruto put his hand on Tsunade's, making her look at him. Ba-chan, I know what it's like to want your family back, even though I never had mine in the first place. But we are kind of family, distant family maybe, but that's still family, yeah, no. He looked straight into her eyes. Won't you come with me? Tsunade sat in thought for a minute. My debt collectors will definitely catch up to me if I go to Konoha. Naruto smiled. Family doesn't just sit back in times of need, do they? I can help with that. Tsunade just sobbed out a laugh. You really want me back, don't you? Naruto slowly nodded. I do, Ba-chan. You can be with family again, and there is so much more than just my needs. In particular, there is a Tokubetsu Junin who is dying of a severe case of pneumonia. I'm taking his place as a proctor in the Chunin exams, but I still don't want to see him die. Tsunade sighed. Fine. If you help me pay my debt, then I'll come back and live at your compound with you. She thought for a second. Maybe I can take some time as an advisor at the hospital too. Naruto nodded with a smile. That sounds like a great idea, Ba-chan. Can you get your affairs in order to leave first thing in the morning? Tsunade nodded. Yes. We were actually planning on it as I just lost a few million ryo, she finished with a slight blush. Naruto just paled as Pakura patted him on the back. Maybe getting Tsunade back wasn't the best idea.